Welcome. Tonight, we're taking a quiet, candlelit journey back to one of the most iconic civilizations in history, the Roman Empire. But before you picture gleaming marble columns, disciplined legions, or bustling marketplaces, let's slow down. Imagine instead the sound of sandals on worn stone streets, the faint aroma of bread baking somewhere in the distance, and the low hum of voices speaking Latin in the evening air. In this story, you're not an observer, you're living it. You've somehow found yourself transported to Romnophone. No modern comforts, no way back. And while the idea might sound thrilling, the reality is something else entirely. Because in the Roman Empire, your survival isn't guaranteed. Not even for a single day. So, settle into your bed, adjust your pillows, and let the soft glow of this story carry you into sleep. I've added some gentle, soothing music, deep thoughts by Movi to keep you company along the way. The streets of Rome are waiting for you, but so are the challenges that will test every part of you. Let's begin. Waking in the eternal city, the first thing you notice is the heat. It's morning in the city of Rome, and even before the sun fully rises, the air is already heavy. You open your eyes to see a small, bare rumor-rented space above a baker's shop, with plaster walls stained from years of smoke and oil lamps. There's no mattress, just a straw-stuffed sack beneath you. You shift and feel the coarse fabric scrape against your skin. Somewhere below, you hear the rhythmic thump of dough being kneaded. The baker starting his day long before most have stirred. You sit up, your body stiff from sleeping on the hard surface. And already the smells are mingling warm bread. Yes, but also the acrid bite of human waste drifting in from the alley. The Romans have public latrines, but they're not everywhere, and at night, chamber pots are emptied straight into the street. When you step outside, the first thing you feel is the uneven cobblestones beneath your thin sandals. The street is narrow, walled in by tall insulae apartment buildings that lean toward each other. Their upper floors connected by wooden beams. Above you, lines of laundry sway gently. Below, a cart creaks by, pulled by a tired mule. The driver glances at you briefly, but says nothing. You're just one face in a crowd of thousands, and already you can sense that Rome is alive, restless and utterly indifferent to your presence. The morning rush, as you join the flow of people toward the forum, you begin to feel the press of bodies around you. Merchants are setting up stalls, laying out bolts of dyed cloth, baskets of figs, slabs of salted fish. The air is thick with smells, some pleasant, most not. A man shouts the price of olives. Another waves you toward a stall selling fresh honey cakes. You pass by, but your stomach growls your last proper meal was yesterday, and in Rome, food is neither free nor plentiful for strangers. You think about asking someone for directions, but the language barrier is sharp. The Latin here is quick, clipped, and full of slang you can't follow. A wrong word might mark you as foreign, and foreigners aren't always welcomed. At a corner, you see a group of men gathered around a public fountain, filling clay jars with water. You consider doing the same, until you remember you have no jar and the water isn't always clean. It's barely mid-morning, and already the city feels overwhelming. You came here with curiosity, but in Rome, curiosity must quickly give way to caution. Somewhere in the distance, a trumpet sounds a signal from the military camp beyond the city gates. The sound rolls over the rooftops, mixing with the chatter, the cries, the clatter of iron-shod wheels on stone. And as the sun rises higher, you begin to realize just how long this day might feel. You awaken to the sound of footsteps above your head. The faint light seeping through the cracks in the wooden shutters tells you it's early. Perhaps the 9th hour of the morning. Your bed, a simple wooden frame with a straw-filled mattress, creaks as you sit up. The air is heavy with the faint smell of olive oil and wood smoke from the hearth below. You rub your eyes, still adjusting to the dim glow of the oil lamp you left burning overnight. You step into your sandals, feeling the coarse leather straps against your skin, and make your way down the narrow stairs of your insula, the multi-story apartment building where you live alongside dozens of others. The walls are thin here. You can hear the sound of a baby crying in the next room, a couple arguing about money, and the dull thud of a pestle grinding grain from somewhere below. Outside your door, the alley is already alive. Merchants are setting up their stalls, colorful fabrics fluttering in the mild breeze, baskets of figs and dates neatly arranged, jars of garum sealed with wax, and fresh loaves of bread still steaming from the bakery's oven. The air hums with chatter, footsteps, and the distant bray of a donkey being coaxed to move its cart. The streets of Rome are never silent. Even in the early hours, the soundscape is layered. The clip-clop of hooves on cobblestones, the sharp calls of vendors advertising their goods, the rattle of a cartwheel hitting a loose stone. You make your way into the crowd, feeling the sun beginning to warm your back. You're headed toward the Forum Romanum, the beating heart of public life. It's here where politicians make speeches, where merchants strike deals, and where news from far-off provinces is shared. As you enter, marble columns tower above you, their white surfaces glowing faintly in the morning sun. The smell of incense drifts from a nearby temple, mingling with the aroma of freshly baked bread and the sharper tang of livestock. You pass a group of men gathered in heated debate, their togas wrapped tightly around them, fingers gesturing sharply in the air. Nearby, a scribe dips his reed pen into a small pot of ink, meticulously writing out an official decree on a sheet of papyrus. For a moment, you stand still, taking it all in. The scale, the sound, the color. Rome is overwhelming, yet mesmerizing. It's a city that never truly rests, a place where every street corner hums with life and every stone tells a story. But you're not here just to wander. You've been tasked with delivering a message to a merchant in the Forum's western quarter. A short walk, but in Rome, even short walks are full of distractions, surprises, and occasional dangers. You turn down a narrower street, passing the statue of a victorious general. Children chase each other around its base, their laughter echoing off the stone. An elderly woman, seated on a stool, offers small cups of watered wine to passers-by for a single coin. It's easy to lose track of time here, and before long, you find yourself lingering longer than you intended. But the day is young, and Rome, vast, chaotic, and endlessly alive, stretches out before you. The heart of the empire. Daily life in Rome, you awaken to the muted hum of activity outside your modest dwelling. The light that seeps in through the narrow opening in your wall is soft and golden, filtered by the morning haze that hangs over the city. Somewhere far away, you hear the faint crackle of a baker's oven being stoked, and the hollow clatter of amphorae being set down by a shopkeeper preparing for the day. You rise slowly from your stroffed mattress, the coarse fibers brushing against your skin. The air carries a mingled scent, fresh bread from a nearby bakery, the faint tang of the Tiber, and the earthy aroma of the stone streets still damp from the previous night's cleaning. Rome is not silent for long. As the sun begins to climb, the city's rhythm builds like a tide. The narrow street outside is already alive. A fruit vendor calls out in melodic Latin, his voice rising above the creak of wooden cartwheels. Children dart between adults, chasing each other past walls covered in layers of faded paint and chalk scribbles. A woman in a dark stola sweeps the threshold of her home. Her movements unhurried, the bristles whispering against the stone. Everywhere you look, the city tells a story. The tenement buildings, insulae, rise above you, leaning ever so slightly inward. Their upper floors swaying just enough in the wind to make you wonder about their stability. Below, shopkeepers work in spaces no bigger than a storage cupboard, their hands moving in practiced motions as they weigh grain or slice cheese for the first customers of the day. A group of men in rough tunics loiters at a corner, speaking in low voices. One gestures animatedly, his arm tracing invisible patterns in the air, while another nods, his gaze fixed on the cobbles as though trying to picture the story being told. For you, every sound is magnified. The iron shoes of a passing mule click against the street. The soft rustle of a passing toga blends with the gentle splash of water from a public fountain where a woman fills her jug. And somewhere far off, you hear the faint, steady rhythm of hammers. Construction, always construction, as Rome's shape is never truly complete. The pace of life here is unhurried yet constant, like the steady movement of the Tiber itself. The city breathes, and you feel yourself breathing with it, and social layers of a Roman citizen's day, from marketplaces to public baths. The pulse of the marketplace and the baths by midday, the streets have transformed. What was once a gentle trickle of movement has become a restless current of bodies, voices, and smells. You make your way toward the marketplace, the forum, your sandals crunching on bits of grit and broken, pottery scattered along the road. The heat presses down on you now, heavy and relentless, and the white stone buildings seem to shimmer in its glare. As you step into the forum, the world becomes louder, more chaotic. The air is thick with competing scents. Sweet figs piled high in baskets, sharp vinegar from jars of preserved olives, and the pungent temps of freshly slaughtered meat. Merchants shout over one another in a chorus of persuasion, each promising the best deal, the freshest catch, the finest cloth from the east. A young boy weaves through the crowd, clutching a bundle of scrolls under one arm, darting past a group of senators deep in discussion. Their togas are dazzlingly white, each fold arranged with meticulous care, signaling wealth and status. Across the square, a storyteller has drawn a small audience, his hands painting images in the air as he recounts a tale of heroism from the wars. The crowd laughs, gasps, and nods at the familiar beats of the story. But the true social heart of the city lies beyond. At the public baths, by the afternoon, the thermae are a refuge for both the weary laborer and the influential elite. You pass under an archway into a vast hall where light filters down through high windows, casting shifting patterns across the tiled floor. The air is warm, scented faintly of oil and steam. Men recline on stone benches, speaking in hushed tones about politics, trade, or the latest gossip. Others move between the pools, the water glinting in shades of blue and green under the dim light. You watch as attendants rub olive oil into the skin of bathers before scraping it away with curved metal strigils, leaving their bodies gleaming. Here, The boundaries between classes blur, if only for an hour or two. A baker might find himself in conversation with a magistrate. A soldier might share a joke with a wealthy merchant. The baths are a microcosm of Rome itself, a place where ambition, leisure, and daily ritual meet in the same breath. And as you sink into the warm water, the murmur of voices becomes a steady, soothing backdrop, as though the entire city has gathered here to exhale. Bread and spectacle. The afternoon sun has begun its slow descent, but the city's energy has not dimmed. It has merely shifted focus. Crowds flow like rivers toward the great arenas, theaters, and circuses, each person eager for a seat at the grand performances that define Roman leisure. You find yourself drawn toward the largest of them all, the Colosseum. Its massive stone arches rise above the city like the ribs of some ancient, slumbering beast. The air hums with anticipation, 1,000 conversations weaving together into a low roar that grows louder as you step inside. The light here is different, filtered through the high walls, falling in golden beams onto the sand of the arena floor. Vendors wind their way through the stands, balancing trays of bread, olives, and wine. The crowd's chatter quiets as the first event begins. From the shadowed gates, gladiators emerge, their armor catching the light, their expressions unreadable beneath the weight of the spectacle. The clash of metal on metal rings out, sharp and rhythmic. Every strike, every feint, draws gasps and cheers. This is not merely sport. It is theater, politics, and power intertwined. The emperor himself, seated high above, watches with a measured gaze, knowing that such displays binds the people's loyalty as much as bread and coin. Later, you follow another crowd toward the Circus Maximus, the vast chariot racing stadium that stretches nearly beyond sight. The air smells of dust and horse sweat, and the ground vibrates beneath the pounding hooves. Chariots race round the central spina, drivers leaning in tight on the turns, while the crowd erupts with every close call. It is chaos and artistry combined, a blur of color, speed, and risk. The roar of the crowd swells and crashes like waves, the outcome of each race holding the power to ignite celebration or spark brawls between rival factions. By the time the races end, your senses are saturated, the cheers still ringing in your ears, the image of sunlit dust still hanging before your eyes. Entertainment in Rome is not a mere pastime. It is an act of identity, a collective heartbeat, a reminder to every citizen of the empire's might and splendor. The Roman night, the last gold of the afternoon sun, fades over Rome's rooftops, leaving a warm afterglow that lingers in the air. The heat of the day finally begins to loosen its grip, and the marble walls of temples and villas seem to sigh in relief. Long, drowsy shadows stretch across the streets, pooling at the base of columns and creeping into the narrow alleyways. You can hear the gradual shift in sound. The clang of hammers and the calls of merchants soften, replaced by the rising hum of evening voices. Oil lamps begin to bloom like small stars in doorways, their flames dancing in the light breeze. The glow they cast is warm and golden, a stark contrast to the harsh glare of the midday sun. The air itself feels different now, still holding the faint scent of dust and stone, but layered with the earthy smell of baking bread from corner ovens. The tank of olives and pickled vegetables and the sharp sweetness of wine being uncorked. You pass a tavern with its shutters thrown open, revealing a lively but intimate scene. Inside, the space is dim, but the firelight flickers across the faces of its patrons. A group of laborers sit hunched over a low table, their rough hands wrapped around clay cups as they trade jokes and argue about the day's races. A pair of merchants, finely dressed but with sleeves rolled up, lean toward each other in an animated discussion about prices and routes. The smell here is rich. Spiced wine simmering over the hearth, meat roasting slowly on skewers, a faint trace of rosemary clinging to the air. Not far away, another world exists behind the high walls of a patrician's home. In a columned dining room lit by tall beeswax candles, the wealthy recline on cushioned couches arranged around low tables. Their meals are feasts of abundance. Steaming platters of fish glazed with honey, ripe figs arranged in bowls of polished bronze, small pastries filled with nuts and dripping with syrup. The air hums with conversation, the kind where every word is carefully measured and yet meant to impress. Servants move between guests with practiced grace, refilling goblets, offering steaming towels, and ensuring no plate remains empty for long. Even in these early hours of night, the city's two worlds, the public and the private, the humble and the grand, are alive, each with its own rhythm. The streets outside carry the mingled sounds of laughter, footsteps, and distant music, creating a backdrop that feels timeless, as if Rome has been breathing in this very way for centuries. As darkness deepens, the city begins its slow transformation. The bustling noise of the day has melted into a softer, steadier pulse. Not silence, but the kind of quiet that carries only what matters. The main streets, once crowded with carts and shouts, are now open and echoing, the only sound being the slow creak of a wagon wheel passing in the distance, or the gentle murmur of a night patrol moving through the lamplight. The sky above is a vast sweep of black velvet scattered with sharp points of starlight, far brighter than anything in the modern world could show you. With no glass windows or electric glow to dull them, the stars watch over the city like ancient guardians. The moon hangs low, spilling silver light over tiled rooftops and glistening along the curves of temple columns. In the quieter districts, the pace slows further still. Families gather in the small courtyards of their insula, the tall, crowded apartment buildings where most Romans live. Here, the air smells faintly of clay and drying laundry, mixed with the last smoke from cooking fires. Parents tell familiar tales to children curled up on woven mats, their voices carrying the weight of traditions passed down for generations. A few neighbors sit together on low stools, sipping watered wine and speaking of crops, births, or simply the weather. Somewhere in the distance, a lone musician plucks a lyre, the notes drifting through the warm night like drops of water falling into still pools. The sound is faint but carries far, weaving through streets and over rooftops until it feels as though the whole city can hear it. It's a sound that doesn't demand attention. It invites it, lulling anyone listening into a state of quiet reflection. And yet, Rome never truly sleeps. Behind the shuttered windows of taverns, dice still clatter on wooden tables. In the private rooms of the elite, deals are made in hushed voices over the last sips of spiced wine. Lovers meet in shadowed gardens, their whispers hidden by the rustle of leaves. Even in the deepest hours of night, the city breathes, steady, constant, and impossibly alive. By the time your own eyes grow heavy, the rhythm of the streets has become a lullaby. The night here does not simply pass, it folds around you like a soft blanket, carrying you into sleep while the eternal city continues its quiet, endless vigil. The Roman feasts and banquets, a world of excess. The scent reaches you before you even step inside. It is not the simple aroma of bread baking or a stew simmering, no. This is an intoxicating blend of roasted meats, fragrant herbs, and exotic spices imported from lands you have only ever heard about in whispered tales. The feast is being held in the grand dining hall of a wealthy Roman senator's villa, a space large enough to echo with the sound of clinking cups and bursts of laughter. Marble columns line the room, supporting a painted ceiling, where mythological gods watch the gathering below. As you are ushered in, your senses are overwhelmed. Long tables, arranged in a U-shape, are overflowing with platters of food. There is roasted boar glazed in honey, peacocks with their feathers still displayed for show, bowls of fresh figs and pomegranates, and breads infused with olives and herbs. But what strikes you most is the sheer abundance, far more food than any one gathering could possibly consume. It is not about necessity here, it is about spectacle. Guests recline on couches, propped on their left elbows, eating leisurely with their right hand. Slaves move silently between the couches, refilling wine cups and presenting new courses. Conversation flows easily, sometimes dipping into politics, sometimes into philosophical debates, and sometimes into gossip about who in the Senate is quietly gaining too much influence. The wine is not just wine, it is mixed with honey, herbs, and sometimes even perfumes, giving it a strange sweetness that lingers on the tongue. Drinking is not done in moderation. Cups are constantly refilled, and to refuse is to risk being labeled dull or ungrateful. You are encouraged, almost pressured, to eat and drink to excess, not out of hunger, but out of custom. Yet, as you observe, you begin to notice the subtler truths of these banquets. They are not just meals, they are political theatres. Every dish served is a statement of wealth and power. Every seat at the table is a sign of favor or influence. The host is not merely feeding his guests. He is buying loyalty, spreading rumors, and cementing alliances. In this hall, the most important deals are not made in the Senate, they are made between bites of stuffed dormice and sips of spiced wine. And then there is the entertainment. Between courses, musicians play soft melodies, dancers perform with graceful movements, and poets recite verses that alternately praise the host or poke fun at the absent. It is a carefully orchestrated experience, a blend of indulgence and subtle manipulation. You can almost forget that outside these walls, hunger and poverty run rampant for the common citizens of Rome. Here, at this feast, you understand one thing clearly. Surviving in the Roman Empire was not just about physical endurance, it was about navigating a society where every gesture, every invitation, and every morsel of food carried meaning. The dark side of Roman indulgence, the night stretches on, and the hall grows louder. What began as polite conversation now blurs into slurred words and booming laughter. Wine spills onto the marble floor, and the once carefully plated dishes are reduced to scattered remains. The sweet perfumes that once lingered in the air, now mixed with the sour tang of spilt drink and the sharpness of roasted meat turning cold. You begin to feel the weight of the food and wine pressing on you. Romans, especially the elite, were known for their excesses, and when the stomach could take no more, there were solutions. In one dimly lit corner, guests casually excuse themselves to a side room where, you are told, they can relieve themselves of their fullness to make room for more food. The practice is not exactly hidden. It is an open secret in elite circles, yet it feels unsettling. even grotesque. There is also a certain cruelty in the air, not overt but lingering. You notice that the slaves who serve the food receive no part of it themselves, living instead on scraps left after the guests have gone. Some of the entertainment, too, turns mean-spirited mocking performances aimed at absent political rivals. Jokes at the expense of foreign guests, or even challenges that pit entertainers against one another for the amusement of the crowd. The more you watch, the more the illusion fades. The abundance on the table is not a sign of generosity, it's a sign of control. Only the wealthy can afford such decadence, and they wield it like a weapon, displaying their ability to waste what others might fight to survive on. Your senses grow heavy, and a strange discomfort settles in not from the food, but from the unspoken truth. Beneath the marble and gold, beneath the laughter and music, is a society built on imbalance. This feast, for all its beauty and abundance, is a reminder that in Rome, survival is not about having enough. It is about knowing your place in the order of things and never reaching too far above it. By the time the last cup of wine is poured and the final song is sung, you realize that the Roman feast is both dazzling and dangerous. It can elevate you to favor or bury you in disgrace in this empire. Either outcome can come swiftly. The Roman army's relentless march, you are awakened before dawn by the sound of boots and the rattling of shields. A centurion steps into the cramped barracks, his voice sharp and commanding. There is no time to stretch or yawn. You are ordered to be ready within minutes. The Roman army does not tolerate delays. You re-handed a bundle of gear that feels heavier than you imagined. Your shield alone weighs close to 20 pounds, and the iron helmet presses down on your neck like a vice. A short sword, the gladiator, hangs at your side, its weight constantly reminding you that you are now a soldier of Rome, whether you feel ready or not. Outside, the early morning air is cold and damp. The camp is alive, with movement, rows of tents being dismantled, wagons loaded with supplies, and soldiers lining up in tight formations. The discipline is impressive. Every man knows his place. Every movement is synchronized. The order is given to march, and you begin walking on the packed dirt road that stretches endlessly ahead. Your pace is brisk. Nearly 20 miles must be covered before nightfall land. The centurions ensure that no one falls behind. The sound of hobnailed sandals striking the road forms a steady rhythm, and soon your legs ache from the unrelenting pace. As the sun climbs, the heat begins to take its toll. Sweat drips into your eyes, and your tunic sticks to your skin. You try to drink sparingly from your water flask. There are no convenient wells along the way, and rationing is a necessity. All around you, soldiers march in silence, the occasional cough or grunt breaking the monotony. By midday, you realize the true challenge is not the distance, it's the burden. Between your weapons, armor, rations, and camp tools, you are carrying nearly 60 pounds on your back. Your shoulders ache, your calves burn, and your breath grows heavier. Yet, when you glance at the veterans beside you, they march without complaint, their expressions calm, almost bored. When the halt is finally called for a short rest, it's not a leisurely lunch break, it's a chance to shovel down bread and cheese while still standing. The officers remind you that an army must move swiftly. Lingering invites danger. Soon, the order to march again comes, and the line of soldiers moves forward as one, like a living wall of iron and leather. By the time the sun begins to set, your feet are blistered. Your back feels as though it might snap, and your head throbs from the strain. You realize that surviving in the Roman army isn't about winning glorious battles, it's about enduring endless days like this, one after another. And at last, after miles of relentless marching, the army halts in a wide, open field. You think you might finally rest, but the centurion's orders dash your hopes. Before eating or sleeping, the camp must be built. Every Roman soldier is not just a warrior, but also a laborer. The tools come out: picks, shovels, and axes, and the first task is to dig a ditch around the perimeter. You join a line of soldiers carving into the hard earth, the repetitive motion sending jolts of pain up your arms. The dirt piles higher and higher as the sun sinks below the horizon. Next comes the palisade. Wooden stakes, sharpened to deadly points, are hammered into place, creating a formidable wall around the camp. You notice that the fortifications are no temporary measure room. Military engineers have perfected this method over centuries. Even for a single night's rest, the army builds as if preparing for a siege. Inside the camp, order reigns. Tents are arranged in precise rows, streets laid out like a miniature city. The commanding officer's quarters stand at the center, while the soldiers' tents fill the surrounding space. Fires are lit, but they are small and carefully positioned to avoid drawing unwanted attention from potential enemies. Finally, when the work is complete, you are permitted to eat. The evening meal is simple: barley porridge with a bit of salted pork. It's not delicious, but after the day's exertion, it tastes like a feast. You sit with your tent mates, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of the fire, and you hear the low murmur of Latin conversation mixed with the occasional burst of laughter. The night watch is assigned, and you breathe a silent sigh of relief when your name is not called. Others will pace the perimeter under the stars while you collapse onto your bedding. The ground is hard, your muscles throb, and your feet are robbed. The moment you lie down, exhaustion overtakes you. As sleep pulls you under, you think of the countless other nights like this ahead. In the Roman army, survival is not just about facing the enemy, it's about enduring the relentless demands of discipline, duty, and the march of the empire. The Roman bathhouse, a ritual of cleanliness and connection. Imagine the air around you is warm, carrying a faint, mineral-rich scent. You stand at the entrance of a thermae, one of Rome's famed public bathhouses. These were not simply places to scrub away the dirt of the day. They were sprawling complexes, social hubs, and symbols of civic pride. As you step inside, your sandals click softly against the mosaic floor. The walls are adorned with intricate designs. Dolphins leaping over stylized waves, sea gods lounging among curling vines, and birds frozen mid-flight. The artistry here is not incidental. It is deliberate, meant to soothe the mind and prepare the spirit for the ritual of bathing. The first chamber is the apodictium, the changing room. Marble benches line the edges, and the air is filled with murmurs. The gentle hum of conversation, the sound of cloth being folded and sandals placed carefully in niches. Slaves attend to their masters, taking garments with a practiced bow. You might feel a momentary vulnerability here. To undress in public is to expose not just your body, but your station in life. The wealthy arrive with attendants carrying scented oils. The poor make do with little more than their own hands and water. From here, you move into the tepidarium, the warm room. It is a place of gentle transition. the stone floors warmed from beneath by the hypercost, a marvel of Roman engineering that channels heat through raised floors and hollow walls. The warmth seeps into your skin, loosening muscles, calming the mind. Conversations drift around you. A merchant discussing trade routes with a senator. An elderly man recalling the games of his youth. Two young men debating a passage of Virgil. Beyond the tepidarium lies the caldarium. The hot room, steam clouds the air, blurring the edges of the ornate pillars and bathing everything in a soft, dreamlike haze. You feel beads of sweat form almost instantly on your brow. Some linger here for long stretches, letting the heat draw out aches and soften the skin before being scraped away with a chill. The scraping is brisk, almost startling. Yet afterward your skin feels renewed, smoother, lighter, as if a layer of the day's weight has been lifted. Then, at last, comes the frigidarium. The plunge into the cold pool is a shock, sending a brief shiver through your entire body. In that moment, your senses sharpen. You notice the sharp scent of the water, the bright echo of laughter from the other side of the pool. The way the ceiling's high arch catches and scatters sound. Bathing in Rome is more than cleanliness. It is a rhythm, a daily act that connects citizens to one another. Here, senators and soldiers, merchants and artisans share the same water, the same warmth, the same fleeting conversations. For a time, the sharp lines between classes blur, softened by steam and the shared human need for warmth and care. The final hours of a Roman day, the day in the Roman Empire, begins to fade, though in truth, for many, life never truly stops. The streets, which only hours ago bustled with the chaos of carts, market calls, and heated debates, are now subdued. The stone walls of the Insulathos towering apartment blocks absorb the warmth of the day, slowly releasing it into the cooling night. You are tired. Your muscles ache from labor or long walks. Your stomach perhaps full from the evening meal, or perhaps only partially satisfied if the day's wages didn't stretch far enough for a proper feast. The light begins to change, and the city takes on a softer, almost deceptive calm. The oil lamps flicker in windows, glowing like amber stars scattered across the dark stone. The smell of smoke curls in the air-burnt olive oil, mingled with the faint aroma of bread baking for the next morning. Somewhere nearby, a group of neighbors sits on stools in a narrow alley, speaking in low voices about politics, gossip, and the rumors of the day. It's tempting to think that night in Rome might be peaceful, that you could rest without disturbance. But here, the night brings its own dangers. Wealthy households may have guards posted by their doors. Poorer ones rely on the hope that the shadows pass them by. Petty thieves prowl, taking advantage of the darkness. The watchmen patrol, their footsteps slow and deliberate, though their presence is not always enough to guarantee safety. If you lived in a cramped upper floor of an insula, the air might feel stuffy, carrying the heat of the day long past sunset. The creak of wooden beams overhead, the shuffle of neighbors in the narrow corridors, the occasional crash of pottery dropped in the dark, these become the lullabies of your night. The Tiber flows quietly beyond the city's heart, reflecting the moonlight in faint silver streaks. You might lie awake, listening to the distant splash of oars as traders, ferrymen and fishermen move under cover of darkness. The empire may seem eternal, but life Here your life is fragile, lived moment to moment. And in these final hours of the day, you are reminded of that fragility more than ever. Here in Rome, even rest is something you must earn, and something you must protect. The empire sleeps, but not completely. The deep hours arrive when the streets grow nearly empty, and the sounds of the city fade to whispers. This is the Rome few see unless they work through the night. Bakers kneading dough in the heat of their ovens, guards standing in torchlight outside gates, and the occasional cloaked figure hurrying home before being noticed. Above, the stars stretch across the Mediterranean sky, dimmed slightly by the city's haze, yet still ancient and unchanged. The moon drapes her pale light over the tiled rooftops, the temples, and the winding streets, making the marble gleam faintly as if the gods themselves were watching. If you are fortunate, you sleep now, your body curled on a straw-filled mattress or a simple blanket on the floor. The air cools, the city exhales. Dreams take you far from the weight of taxes, labor, and survival. But for some, sleep never comes whether from the press of heat, the itch of lice, or the gnawing worry of what tomorrow may bring. Rome, in these hours, feels both eternal and fragile. The empire stretches across seas and mountains, yet here, in this darkened apartment, life feels small and human. You are part of something vast, yet powerless against its tides. By the time the faintest grey of dawn brushes the sky, the first carts will already creak along the stones, bringing vegetables, amphorae of wine, and baskets of olives into the waking city. Fires will be stoked again. Voices will rise. The day will begin anew. And you, if you have survived, the night will rise with it, stepping once more into the endless rhythm of Roman life.